Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of StageCraft. If I am going to be truthful and completely transparent, this is like the fifth take of this I have taken because they all are just sounding worse and worse as I try to describe to you how important this episode is. So, without any further ado, this is StageCraft. I'm Alex, the producer, host, and editor. I was going to have this whole thing about how life moves fast, but Alex doesn't, but fuck that shit. Let's just get to this interview with Gizz and Franz Stahl of Scream, and you need to get down to the Black Cat tonight and see them live and in person with Souldside. It's going to be a great show. Come on down. Oh, and also... I'm sorry. Johnny Temple of Soulside is also in this episode. He joins us about 10, 15 minutes in. So get your butts down, listen to this, and then get down to the Black Cat tonight. We'll see you there. I got a question for everyone in this room.
All right.
I heard it on the way. So I was in an Uber on the way over here because my car doesn't work, which is fine. The Uber person had a podcast on, which I had never experienced this before. So I had basically 45 minutes of listening to this self-help podcast. And I didn't have enough balls to say oh, can you turn this fucking off? Because I'm not into this. So 5 minutes in, it goes from I am not fucking into this. To all of a sudden I'm like, this guy's got some good fucking points. I am into this.
What was that again?
Yeah.
So you stayed in the Uber for...
Yeah, I mean, I had the door open and I was like,
Decided to go back where he picked you up from.
You know what? I'm into this.
Just to finish out the podcast.
So it's something that came up, and I never thought about this for myself. So, and it's more relevant to y'all because you're the interview subjects. Can we talk about rejection, failure for a minute?
Absolutely.
When is the last time you remember feeling like you actually failed at something meaningful? And would you share it with us?
Yeah. Do you want to get rid of this?
Oh Jesus. I feel like that all the time with my kids.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like I don't do well enough by them sometimes. But that's
Maybe you just don't.
What you're thinking is true.
What about artistically though? Artistically,
I mean,
or in that realm.
I never feel like I've failed.
Yeah.
I felt like that I haven't captured what I had in my mind, and then there's not enough time to fix it because Don's like, we gotta go. It's 11:30.
Wait a minute. Ian's the one who does that. Come on, let's move on. Come on. Well, yeah, but that's good. Let's go.
But I mean, anything that particular would be insofar as playing live, where I totally just don't nail it at all.
Yeah.
And I've completely failed, and I feel very embarrassed and whatever, but I move on. But in music with songs and stuff like that, I never feel like I fail. I feel like I don't get it right. It's not what I had in mind. I'm not feeling it, but never, complete and utter failure.
But at this point, I mean, you are a professional, and it's almost like it would be hard to really screw up in a major way, correct?
No, you can totally screw up in a minute.
Really?
Well, sorry, I have gum on my mouth.
Yeah, can you spit the gum out for me?
Yeah.
No, we're just kidding.
You can go into a gig with just a bad mindset on, and before you know it, you're ruining your own show.
But you know the songs, and you know the chords, you know the notes that you have to play. You run on muscle memory. I don't know.
Well, as far as execution, yeah, you always usually get through it.
Yeah.
But as to Gizz's point, live, I mean, if it sounds bad, if you're having a bad show, everything sucks.
Yeah.
And it's even if the guy next to you, everybody else, doesn't feel that way. You personally, you're just waiting for the show to end to get off.
Yeah.
And it just happens.
That's getting in your head a little bit, right?
It gets in your head.
Because you can't be now you're not in the room.
Yes.
Yeah, right. There's no right answer, wrong answer, and everyone has to answer this question. I think it's important for us
And
all.
in the same band, two people will have totally the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest. Yeah.
What about you? What about failure for you? When's the last time you remember feeling failure? If you consider, When? For what reason? If you
I
don't
just
mind
had I get these memories coming back, and I just remembered like about 25 years ago when I didn't remember to feed the cat. And, I just remembered it, I just I didn't put water out for the cat, and then I just thought, shit, you should have done that. And I didn't.
Yeah, see, like with me with my children, it's like 25 years ago, I forgot to feed them, and I still haven't fed them.
They figured it out, though.
But at least they've
They're
got
all
very
adults
nice waists.
Yes.
They're roaming the streets of Hollywood, right? Panhandling.
Wafer thin.
Wafer
But what about artistically, creatively?
It's similar to what Franz said. I mean, we've done gigs, and he's come off and he's looked at me and goes, "Oh," and he's shaking his head. And I've had a great gig, and I'm having to hide because I'm smiling too much, And then
that's complete shite.
I've had a weird gig where, for no reason, just for dumb, stupid reasons. It could be that it's my own fault. I'm kind of just in with the wrong mindset. I'm not hearing things right, so the sound that's coming out my amp isn't. I'm not hearing it properly. I'm hearing this different perception of it. So I'm thinking I sound like shit. Mm-hmm. And then because I film all the gigs, in which Franz hates me doing that.
No, I don't.
But no, he doesn't. He doesn't. He's just confirmed that. You've got that. You've got that now.
Confirming.
I like that you record them. I don't want to ever watch them.
No, well, I want to do them on his side of the stage. I only do them on my side just because I don't know, because I can, because it's my side.
You could learn a lot from it.
And that's it. So this gig, the one that I'm saying that I didn't think I sounded good, I watched it afterwards. I thought, oh, that's great. What am I on about?
Right.
You don't even have to have personally a bad show. It's whatever, how you're enveloped sound wise by everything going on,
Right.
will dictate how good your show will be. Because if it's not sounding right, it just you scamper about. And like I said, you're just like, oh, when will this be over?
But are you monitoring like everything that's going on? Stage?
No, just within my circumference, sort of. And you got to find your spaces on stage, which are good for rhythm. Where's a good spot for your hit? You can hear the solo and everything else: the drums, bass, other guitar player, singer, whatnot. So you kind of do that, and you do that whether it's a good show or a bad show. You're always trying to find your spot on the stage.
Yeah.
Except when obviously you have to sing.
Yeah.
You have to be up in the front of the vocals, and damned the sound, whatever.
Is it the acoustics? Do they throw you off, or just the vibe? Or?
It would be the acoustics and the vibe of what I'm hearing.
The monitoring sometimes.
And the monitoring.
If you've got to stand next to, if you're doing a vocal, you're pinned there, aren't you? What you're going to do, you can't wear a headset, look like Phil Collins. That's not going to work out. And
no Time Life operator for me.
You guys don't wear in-ears, do you?
No, we don't. And we don't have a regular sound man, and we don't have a monitor guy. So it can be a struggle for us. We're at the mercy of this guy at the front of the house that may like us or may not like us, or just mixed like 8 bands at a festival.
Yeah.
And he's, 9 beers in or whatnot.
Yeah.
Most of the time, though.
But most of the time, they get a setting and it kind of works for everybody. But the monitor thing can be an issue for us.
Even on the highest level, things can happen.
Yeah.
There was one time when I was playing a show with, am I allowed to say it? The Prodigy. And I couldn't hear.
Dump.
Clang! And I couldn't hear the guitar at all. And when you're playing at Reading Festival, it's a bit ridiculous. You should be able to hear yourself.
Your guitar. You couldn't hear your guitar. Wow.
Well, then I found out that one of the crew guys had turned down. There was like a little kind of volume pot on the back of the amp. It's one of those Marshall 3-channel things, got like a feed out the back. And they turned it to 0. Here's me telling the monitor guy, turn it all the way up. I can't hear anything. And, and he's signaling to me, I've got it. It's all the way up. Can't go any further. So then I go around the back of the amp, turn it up. And of course, you can imagine the next chord I play is like the loudest chord on earth. Keith Flint's Mohicans were absolutely just sideways, and it was just the loudest G chord on earth.
But that's kind of a good accident. It's not like playing the wrong note or anything.
Right. I mean, those are
Getting a
technical
stare
things.
from your
Those are
brother.
technical things. Those aren't artistic mistakes.
Correct.
They're technical mistakes.
Yeah,
Everyone has bad monitors
I'm
sometimes.
hearing stuff that's not their fault at all.
Well, it takes a while
Bad
for us to
sound
get
guy.
comfortable, to get into that realm where we can be vulnerable. Maybe Don, you talk about a failure you had creatively. Do you?
I've never had any failure.
I know. That's why I
Nothing but
asked you.
success
No,
for
it's-
this man.
I know,
Well,
right?
Make one up.
First of all,
Hit after hit.
I don't play at big places. I play bars and shithole places,
Farmers markets.
and I don't depend on monitors. I really don't. I don't want to. If I'm singing, and usually I am, I want to stick my mic out actually a little bit in front of the speakers. I don't want those monitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say fucking monitors, but I'm not going to.
But I'm not going to use the fuck word.
But I mean, we've played it. We still play it small places,
Yeah.
medium, big size, and then on the festival circuit.
And it's dicey, right? Sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and I would say for the clubs, a lot of it's dependent upon this, the building you're in.
Yeah.
A festival, you're more reliant on the support you get from the monitors.
Oh,
Festival,
absolutely.
it just goes out into the ether, out into the air.
I wouldn't know about that, but I can see that because basically
Right.
you are so far removed from the person at the back.
Right. And the good thing about clubs is that you can really hear everybody else, and you really get that groove going, and you feel it. And then at a festival, it gets lost a lot. Where it sounds like you're the only one playing almost, because it's so loud and it becomes thinner.
Yeah.
But I think the festival thing is that you get used to it, don't you? And you can, you just get in the groove of it, and then people then realize that you're capable of doing that. So they trust you. It only takes you 15 minutes to set your stuff up. You can go on stage. You can handle all the noise problems. Just get on with it. Or the monitor problems. Just get on with it. Just do a good show. And people will then say, wow, they're a festival band. They're a great band.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was with the Foo Fighters, we played 2 nights at Giant Stadium with the Stones. And I was through the roof, and I was so scared to go on stage. And we go out there. I can't even see 2 rows deep because it's pitch black and the lights are a certain way.
But there's people out there.
Well, but still, my fear went.
Yeah.
It just kind of went away.
Well, we joked about this one time on the show when
I couldn't see anybody.
whether it's like a band like at the level of like the Foo Fighters, the Rolling Stones, when they go to towns, they still fill the couple first rows full of their friends, and they're like VIP type people. And so like most of the time when they're looking out there, it's like, oh,
Well, maybe the Stones, but not the Foo Fighters.
well,
I mean,
I guess
my friends couldn't afford the front row.
Shit, for real, right? For real.
My friends are usually on the side of the stage, and I got wristbands for and everything like that.
And I guess most of my memories. So I remember my friend went and saw like some secret show of Justin Timberlake, at the Black or the 930 Club, and it was just all friends at that point. And he was able to like sort of cut loose in a way that he doesn't normally in an environment. And I'm not saying that it's exactly the same in a stadium for you too, but I imagine like looking out and seeing people you're moderately familiar with is a little bit more comforting than looking out and seeing like just a sea of absolute faces you have no idea who they
Familiar
are.
faces are always nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when, that they're always having a good time.
Right.
When you can see them, really listening to your music and they're focusing on you.
Well, this goes to the vibe. You said the word the vibe, right? The vibe. Can we talk about what does that mean? When you say like the vibe of the show, what is that as best you can describe it?
It encompasses several things. Just how you're feeling and how everybody else is feeling and how the audience is accepting you and feeling it, expressing it themselves, and the sound. I mean, to be honest, if it's sounding really good, it's now you're playing for yourself and for your mates next to you, and it's because it all sounds so good and you're rocking, and the audience is second to that.
It's a synchronicity, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a synchronicity.
So what's the performers? What parts are the performers in charge of with the vibe, and does the audience have a part of the vibe too? What's the responsibility of the audience member?
You feel something from them and you react to that.
Uh-huh.
And obviously you want it to be that they want to, they are urgent to have a good time. And you want to feed that back in. you know. And
Well, Dodd mentioned paying attention. You know, it seems like sometimes, like, depending on the venue, like if you play at like O'Shaughnessy's, you're right. It's a different vibe when you're not the main event. Like there are people there to drink, and you're sort of like
Smoke.
Right.
a background, right? And then there's like you're the featured performer. But then there's the festival, which is I am one of many, many, many acts today. Those are different vibes. Can you describe the different vibes of those situations?
Well, I mean, a small club, smaller venues are usually the best places to play, especially when the crowd is right there. You can see them feeding off of you, your energy, and then they get energized, and it's all in your face. And when it's at a larger venue, you become more animated because you're trying to work 4 or 5 rows
Max
deep.
Shaw.
Trying to be bigger than life at that point.
Trying to be bigger than life, and your movements have to be bigger in a showman sense, literally. You know, and it's not much different than theater, where you project to the rear of the audience. So those are the two things that really create a vibe. It's either the people in the club and they're right there, or you're trying to create it yourself because all these people, you have half the place not paying attention, you know, or barely hearing it, not hearing it well.
What I hear is like
Nowadays, sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm interrupting you.
I mean, half the fucking people have fucking cell phones up, and I mean, are they really listening? They're just recording you.
Yeah.
I always wonder who watches all those videos. You know, like everyone's taking a video of like the show. I'm like, I've never been at someone's
Gizz
house
does.
Yes.
and they've said like, "Hey, do you want to see this video of the blank show?" I'm like, no one's ever said that. But what are you talking about? It
Oh, you
sounds
mean
like-
as opposed to like, do you want to hear the Grateful Dead tape that I just made?
Well, that's a little.
RFK?
That's a different audience for
Yeah.
a different reason, and there's almost a culture even around the recording, right?
Yes.
But it almost sounds like you're talking about creating a seal, right? It sounds like you don't want any space between you and what you're actually projecting out there. So if you're in a club, you're right here. There's nothing between you and the other person. Like you could barely even get the phone between you. And if you're in the arena or festival atmosphere, you're trying to project something so big that there's like nothing between you and that other person or the people enjoying that.
Yeah, I want to say vulnerable more in a bigger place, but I mean, you're just as vulnerable in a small place when the person is right next to you and they can literally see you flubbing or just seeing the sweat come off your face.
Remember, most of us are drunk, so I don't know if we're really noticing everything.
I think that one of the ingredients is that if someone comes in and if that band has touched their past, if there's a connection that they've got with, you know, there's something that they've heard and it's made a connection and they're excited, they want to be there, they can move, they want to move to you, you know. We could do a gig and we might really kind of like, we'd be jumping around and like, you know, ramming around and like human tornadoes, just trying to sort of like keep the attention. We want them people to sort of, you know, we want them to go to the bar and buy drinks, you know, we want to be invited back to the gig, you know. And but if someone comes in and they've already got that thing, I'm going to dance to this band, you know, then you're winning from the off, aren't you?
Yeah, that's a wonderful feeling, isn't it? When
Yeah.
they're just sort of they want to see you and hear you and nothing else.
They might not even dance that often,
Yeah.
but they're going to you.
In defense of the picture taker or the occasional video taker, I try not to, but when I think I'm witnessing a moment that I want to remember, like Circle Jerks 40th anniversary, I got some amazing footage of, you know, Circle of Death, and it was insane, and I get so excited watching that and sharing it with people. And Big Tony's birthday party, when Dave got up on the bar.
Right.
I mean, I took a picture and like there's a sea of phones, but that's a moment. And I know
True.
I feel like I should just put the phone down and just, you know.
But is it
like
a
I
moment?
Say, Matt Kim.
But is it a moment if everyone? Because like you can share a moment. Like we can have this moment right now, right? And it's obviously
Let me get my phone.
we're recording this, but like, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't record the moments, because for God's sakes, if we're all going to carry around the phones, fucking use it for God's sake. Like, I mean, don't just put it in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
But like, if everyone's recording it, like there was this BBC special about art, and they were talking about like the difference that changed once people were able to look at paintings, not in the place of where the painting was. And it was a monstrous change in like your life. Like this was a cultural shift throughout the world, right? And so we are experiencing in real time a cultural shift for exactly the same reasons. There's a book or multiple books at this point of pictures of shows where barely anyone was at them, right? And we herald this thing as one of the most sacred documents of our times, and and rightly so, right? But now we have a million pictures of a million shows, and I'm not saying good or bad. It's just a discussion point.
It's I mean, that's a whole another radio show, right?
No, let's talk about it now.
And back to her point. I mean, it's just where we're at. In this era, everybody has phones. And we're an old school band. And we didn't have those back then, And so when we're in a special moment of a song, or my brother singing, and you look down and you see people being reached and reacting to you, then you see people with a phone. You obviously think, well, the person with the phone doesn't give two shits. It's just you don't think they're capturing the moment, and I know they are. It's just the way that things are done nowadays.
I haven't asked other people about it.
And that's just us being old fuddy-duddy, but I'm not slagging off people that use
If they want to take
I'd say they're missing the moment.
If they want to take a really good video, get on the stage, dive off whilst videoing at the same time.
I'll see myself out.
No, I don't. I mean, you have to experience the life in which you are in. Right. And so if you're in our cultural times and the cultural norm is blank, you have your choice to either participate in that or to be anti that. And that's the beautiful thing of life. Right. Well, and so, but to Don's point, I do feel that way oftentimes, which is if you're putting the phone between you and your eyeballs, you're not you're not actually experiencing the moment now. I do think that in my grumpiest times. So I do.
One last stab at that. Jim Saw made a career out of capturing, and the book is amazing. Yes,
great.
I mean, so
great photos.
Not always, but I know it's usually just some schmuck.
But I personally, you talk to somebody never has seen the Bad Brains, okay, and they ask me if I can explain it, and I'm like, no. And then when you see footage of the Bad Brains playing, right, the person that watches this, they still don't get the moment.
Right.
I can never explain what it's like to stand there and listen and watch the Bad Brains play, and the hair is just.
Yeah, you need an enormous block of ice and put it on the back of your neck.
And my body is flushing I'm like I just did some tabs of acid or something. It's hit me hard because our ecstasy. It's like taking ecstasy when I would watch the Bad Brains, and no cell phone photo or selfie will ever capture it, nor will I ever be able to explain it to anybody.
But it was helped.
It would get knocked out of your
before as well. I mean, like what you were saying about art being seen outside a gallery for the first time. You can relate it to records, can't you? When you listen to an album, and you listen to it all the way through, that feeling that you've got, and then you want to go and see that band live because you've just had that experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Music is different than art as far as how it affects people.
Can you dive into that a little bit?
It's probably Johnny.
John, if you go upstairs, would you give me another Bud Light? Thank you.
Maybe MTV wrecked us. I don't know.
What if you had to? If we can we be grumpy, curmudgeonly type people for a minute? If you had to pick a moment or a couple of moments where you were like, that was where shit went bad. Could you pick one of those moments? Like she just said MTV.
Where? Oh, with MTV.
Yeah, which is fine, which is fair. That's a fair thing to say. And is there any of those for you culturally?
Bad where? What do you mean?
Well, when you say MTV ruined us, what do you mean, Kat?
Oh, just combining music with sound.
Music with the visual. No, we talked about this with Amanda Mackay. She talked about how she was like pre-MTV.
Hi, Johnny.
Hey, Alex. Great to meet you, Johnny. Thank you so much. So Amanda Mackay talked about this. She was talking about the difference between what bands were like pre-MTV and what they were like post-MTV, because then all of a sudden there was this like emphasis on like what you look like and how you come across, when before it was not even really thought about very much. And she's speaking of that from her experience. But like something like that is what I'm referring to.
I don't know. We all loved MTV when it came out. Everybody did. Didn't you? You thought it was the coolest thing on earth.
I'll be honest with you. I still think music video. I still watch old music videos.
I love filmmaking, and I love music videos when they're great. You know, just like Rock Over America, which we used to see at the 9:30 Club back in the day before MTV. We would be glued to that TV, watching pretty much the same handful of 16 videos that they would play from these cool bands coming out.
It probably wasn't cool when you realised that everyone could burn all your CDs at the drop of a hat, and you know.
Did that suck?
Well, I mean, yeah, because everyone expects music for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes the value off it, and people don't appreciate maybe as like they should that, you know, we do need to make some kind of income back from this. You know, we've got to try and, if we're going to keep on the road, you know, we've got to at least sort of hit those points where we make enough money to sort of cover all them costs. But when everyone just wants everything for free, which they do, and of course, you know, you sign up to Spotify because you want more and new people to hear you, and there's an opportunity there, but you're not going to get any, you won't get much from it. And so when people were burning CDs as easily as that, you've got the highest quality and bang, you can just burn it off straight away. Now that has to be one of the worst points in music.
I mean, there were huge stores. I mean, Tower Records took a huge. I mean, and there are other factors in play there too. But you know, that was certainly a piece of it.
My largest indifference with MTV and stuff like that was because we did have Rock Over or Night Flight and Rock Over America, where you could possibly end up on that show, a band like Soulside or Scream, or you know, an underground band on the West Coast, which you did see a lot of those on Night Flight and stuff like that. But when MTV came along, it became a controlling part of the major labels, and you would never see underground bands on MTV until years later when they started that 120 minutes and some cooler kind of shows. But prior to that, it was the same goddamn Duran Duran videos and just the top
80s
artists at the time, and it was just. You know, the record labels had control of it, just like they had control of your record being played on the radio. I remember plenty of times, if you guys in the Foo Fighters, you guys don't do this festival, they're not going to play your record on the radio. So it was a form of payola without actually
being
payola. So we had to do all these radio fests just to get our record played. So that was the only thing I didn't like about MTV, but of course, we all wanted to be on TV. Everybody wants to be on TV, and especially a band, and like be seen and be heard. But MTV wasn't doing that. It was the same. You could list the same 12 bands that were.
Well, you know, so to make it, if we can nerd about it a little bit. So MTV, when it first came out, there was actually a lack of videos. So they actually had to go back into the old vaults and get the I forget what they were called when they would show those.
Some of them are terrible from TV shows.
Well, they would
Hootenanny and stuff like that.
Oh, Hootenanny! I remember Hootenanny. They were like reels, promo reels that they would show before movies of like Queen. This was back in like the 70s, and so they got those and they were like, we're going to show these on MTV because we don't have any fucking else, much. Right? And that's part of when you're getting into like, is it the distribution or is it the actual talent? So if you're showing Duran Duran video, and not to pick on Duran Duran, they have good albums.
That's just one name.
But if you're playing the same video every hour on the hour, well, someone of course is going to buy that fucking record because they have to. Otherwise, they're going to go insane, you know. And so we were at this weird time where this new thing was getting huge and the distribution was suddenly taken over, but it was also inundated with the same people over and over again.
But that's curating. I mean, there's
but is it curating?
And also payola's always been here. You know, it's existed since, you know, I don't know, the 40s as far as I know. It's always been around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I still think that it was that whole thing with the MP3s, you know, just like, you know, not being able to
fucking Napster. Fucking Napster.
I know. It's just that, look, you know, all I'm saying
would have been somebody. The technology just would have.
Oh, in a heartbeat.
It would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And that's what's weird.
It's damaged musicians more than it has many other professions.
But a lot of musicians are complicit in that. I mean, they want exposure. If you were a small band, hey, let's get out there. Let's get our name out there any way possible. I mean, that and
gotta
that's
get your-
valid for them.
You've
Yeah,
got to get
remember
your
when
message
Napster
out.
came out, it was before we had the ease of all these platforms to listen to this stuff and watch this stuff, you know. And Lars was bitching about it back then, and then because I don't remember, I never really was downloading a bunch of songs from other artists when Napster was around, but I certainly when I could stream it on Bandcamp or YouTube and all, when all that stuff came around, you could watch it and listen to anything. But I wasn't doing that really. Were you guys stealing and ripping? I never really did that. I had CDs and
I stole approximately 100 some odd songs, mostly songs that I would never purchase ever. And I felt guilty about it. You know, I did feel guilty about it, but that's why I don't really do that sort of stuff.
right.
Because like for me, I don't
agree with it.
Yeah, like because I have too many friends who if it's like, I mean, I have like working bands, and they're like, listen, if you steal my song, you're stealing money from me. Like that's literally stealing money from me, or at minimum, you're stealing my time. You know, and that's a bummer. And I'm not saying that I'm not some moral saint. Like I go to like a friend has like a streaming site, like I'll watch a movie or whatever. So I don't hold to those principles, but yeah, I mean, as far as like downloading MP3s and stuff like that, like it seemed weird to me. It seemed really weird to me.
But at the same time, you're going to probably play it to 10 of your friends, and they're going to be exposed to that music.
Well, and that's real. But I think what I also noticed, if we're going to, and again, like if you buy into culture, if you buy into cultural norms or cultural tides, at the same time that we had this influx of people downloading MP3s or streaming, we also had a lower amount of people engaging with each other in real. I remember giving someone a CD mix or a tape mix. That was like a treasured moment. Back to the moment, right? You were like, hey, I made this for you. It's all my favorite songs, or it's all songs about blank. Now it's like, hey, I made this playlist for you. Cool.
Well, that can be good.
Well, it is good, but it's like, but without that physical, and this is just me generation, I'm like,
I mean, come on.
Cool.
The mixtape, you're kind of doing the same thing.
It's the same thing. And when I can hear a band on that playlist I've never heard before,
True.
And then I'm going to them, and I could then buy the vinyl.
Well, I think you're doing it as it is intended. But yeah, and that's legit, and that's good. That is the way it's supposed to work.
Well, that is the biggest difference because, in I don't know the 60s, bands then there was none of that going around then. You wasn't going to bootleg anything as easily as that. What with your reel-to-reel tape recorder or something? You're never going to have that quality.
Well, that's a great example. So you weren't trading tapes back then. Then it was like, you got to come see this band. You got to come see this band. When are they playing next? Oh, you got to come see them, right?
But there was just as much excitement in that when we were sending tapes every day back in the 80s. And on top of that, we had cool local scene fanzines. And a lot of times you wouldn't be on the goddamn mixtape, but they would read about you.
It'd be good if you was.
In some little shitty, little fanzine that a kid has just made and printed from high school. And they see that you're playing there next week at Johnny and Brenda's.
Yeah.
And they fucking go to the show.
I love Johnny.
We used to go to gigs and take stencils of our band logos and like just have a line of people outside. We'll spray it on the back of your jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started this tangent talking about failure.
TV.
Failure. What about like creatively, artistically? What success have you had that you were like, you know what, that was good. I nailed that.
Let's bring Johnny into
Yeah.
this.
Johnny, did you want to talk about failure? We were talking about failure.
Musicians.
Can you define
And Don,
success?
Don has no failure. Failure with his kids. Failure when he forgot to give the cat water. How about you?
But now, Johnny, I mean, you talk about the literary side of it and the musical side of it because you've seen both, big time.
My failures they cross boundaries. They know no bounds.
Nice.
I'm not I do have a few failures. One springs to mind, a literary failure. But my mindset is I definitely am a look forward, not look back kind of.
It's more of a learning experience than a failure.
There was a band.
Oh, it's a failure.
That had a song, a band called Laptop, and they had a song called "I'm So Happy You Failed," and the guy who wrote it was like a pretty good friend of mine, and I think it was based on Girls Against Boys. And weirdly, me and Alexis, the drummer of Girls Against Boys and Soulside, ended up playing in his band, and we played this song.
Oh, that's a nice meta experience there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. It's like some Fleetwood Mac type shit right there.
Reminded me of something. I saw some.
It's actually a pretty good song, but one of my a literary failure that I've had was there was a book. I had published a book by a writer, a female black British African writer named Bernardine Evaristo. I published a novel of hers called Mr. Loverman, which was brilliant and hilarious. And we did really well with it. The New York Times reviewed it. And then her next book, she's published a number of books, but her next book was coming down the pike. And so the agent, her literary agent, brought it to us first. We sort of had dibs on it because we had published her last book and done pretty well with it. And we were in a little bit of a phase where we were trying to be a little bit less loyal, because we've been so loyal to our authors. But if an author you publish writes a subpar book and you publish it out of loyalty, is that a good thing?
No.
It's not good for them or you, yeah.
No.
So that was something that we were trying to get out of, is just sort of knee-jerk publishing the next book by an author out of loyalty. And so this next manuscript from Bernardine Evaristo came my way, and I think I was in a really distracted, week or something, and I read, half of it, and I thought, no, this isn't really holding together. This isn't for us. And I, called the agent and said, I'm so sorry. We love Bernardine, but I don't think that this is necessarily one of her best her best works. And she was like, I said, I don't think there was enough of a hook the way the last book had, yada, all this kind of bullshit. And am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Or should I steer?
We've broken the seal.
That ship has sailed.
And then, of course, the book goes on to win the Booker Prize, one of the biggest, most prestigious literary prizes in the whole world. Everybody loves it. And I'm a fucking asshole.
Well, maybe.
And it's also this thing of
Terrible position.
We have Akashic. One of the things we're really well known for is publishing a diversity of voices, particularly black authors. It's an area where we've really excelled. It's the part of my list that I'm actually the most proud of. And then there's these issues of, well, who works in the company? And it's like, why didn't the white guys see the brilliance of this book that is just sort of universally loved? And I'm like, I'm a schmuck. That's why.
Did you do a turnaround at that point? Did you reread it and change your feelings?
I did. I didn't. I haven't gone back to the book.
You're moving forward from it.
Yeah, I'm moving forward from it. But it really is. I just feel like a bonehead. But also, it's a perfect example of why diversity is important.
Yeah.
I'll bet you anything that if there were, and I'm obviously not trying to categorize people by race or gender, but I bet you if there had been a black woman on my editorial team, she would have instantly known that this is a book that we absolutely had to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to berate myself too much. I'm very proud of my list, and I think my list speaks for itself in terms of my good taste, But that was one where, I don't like being part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution.
Failures are it's debatable. I mean, it's a perspective thing as well. In fact, I saw a bit of graffiti in Hamburg that I'm just going to say now, and it really resonated with me. And that was, fail again, fail harder.
I kind of believe that.
You can get something out of failure.
You can learn. You can learn.
Character.
I certainly learned out of that failure. No, but I think obviously failure.
Because now that's happened to you, and that you're going to carry that
Absolutely.
and think, you know what, next time.
Yeah, I'm not going to be. No, it's definitely. I've certain books coming my way. It's like if I'm in a distracted mood, then I gotta get out of that.
What's going to be funny is if you go back and read it, be like, nah, this fucking sucks.
It still sucks.
No, she's
I
a
thinking?
great writer.
Well,
Definitely.
yeah, we're not demeaning her. This is a joke outside of her. Yeah. can we talk about good taste for a second? Can we talk about taste and knowing what's good? I'm not talking about knowing what's good to you. You know, like we know what we like. I'm not talking about loving something.
But that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
It's a personal
Isn't
thing.
that all
Can we-
good
Very
is?
subjective.
Is there a true objective like that's good, that's great, that's good art, that's good music?
Only the
that's great?
Beatles, nothing else.
No, okay.
Sex Pistols.
That's fair. Don, do you think there's objective good, great?
Boy, that's
Refused.
tough. I don't know.
Bad
Do you believe in
brains.
objectivity at all? Do you think there's an objective
Yeah.
truth at all?
I think there is objective.
valid question.
Sure. There probably is. I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to value.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, you could say the driver coming the wrong way down a one-way street, that's bad. I mean, there's no middle ground with that. It's not like, well, he may be in the wrong, but he might be right.
But he's only going one way.
I know exactly.
That's a good joke.
But
that's
everything else is, especially when you get into art.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, you're
all
gonna bet.
It's all subjective.
Everything that we like, someone
There's
else
nothing
will
that's
dislike it.
there's nothing objectively great.
no.
The Beatles.
Now, even them, so they have a whole bunch of clunkers. I was just thinking about this yesterday.
Name one, sir.
It's subjective in a sense.
So now this is Christmas.
That's not
brutal,
that's
yeah.
not the Beatles though.
It is.
I mean, if you haven't,
That's John Lennon.
John Lennon.
He was in the Beatles, I've heard.
Yeah, and if you're gonna throw, and if you're gonna,
Paul.
Yeah.
yeah,
well,
but
"Wonderful Christmas Time" is one of the
At
worst
one
songs I've
point-
ever heard in my entire life.
Well, yeah, some people slag off Revolution Number 9, but I actually like that.
Yeah.
that's a good.
at some point, everybody started with they can't tune a guitar, and all the shit sounded awful.
Yeah,
So, and at some point, John Lennon, before he could tune a guitar,
that would have sounded pretty bad.
it probably sounded pretty bad.
Funny thing is, you know, because I like buying mono albums now as well, and going back and digging out some of the old 60s stuff that's in mono. I mean, I don't even know if any of the 70s stuff, because I think mono was made obsolete in 69 or something like that. But, like I got Sgt. Pepper's in mono and I put it on, and I was surprised how there was a lot of out of tune vocals going on. But, you know, we were saying that's part of the charm, isn't it? Who cares, you know?
Well, there's certain points you have to care. and-
Yeah.
Are you going to waste a lot of money?
But that's another thing. We was talking about bad brains.
We'll be
earlier
leaving
on,
here
and-
shortly to go to rehearsal, and there'll be several examples in one of these rehearsal rooms where it's like, this is not good.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're not good. It's just they're not there yet, and maybe they'll never get there. Maybe they're just not accomplished at all. But in that sense, there is bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to correct myself. There was a point in my life where I was wrong and
What?
failed. Yeah,
Wait.
and you've heard it before.
No.
When Dave came in to do demos for the Foo Fighters,
Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
I asked him, "What's going to be the name of the band?" He said, "The Foo Fighters." And I said, "That's the dumbest name I've ever heard of." You know, and he took it very nicely. I mean, he was a gentleman, but you know, it seemed to take off.
When I tell that story for Don, I always do the Don part and I go, "You got to change that name."
Yeah.
It took me a
Doesn't he-
long
he doesn't
time
like
to
it either.
appreciate the Scream name.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
The name doesn't mean anything.
it.
It's all what you do when you go up on
understand that,
stage.
yeah.
You know, really. I mean, it's the band I'm in has a stupid name, and I thought it was at the very beginning was stupid. But you know, sometimes you just have to sort of live with it and just move on and play the music great, or if you can.
Right.
If you can, yeah.
If you can, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's legit. Like, I mean, if you are a performer and you can't play your music very well, there's still room for you if you can put on a good show, right?
Absolutely.
Or if
about- how
you
do
do
you
it with
feel about that?
integrity, if you deliver
Yeah, I guess
your
so.
message
I mean,
with
art is
integrity.
art. I mean, you're out there doing it. I mean, it takes the balls just to get up there and do it
Yeah.
Commitment.
in front of a bunch of people.
If you've got a message, or if you just have some passion and love behind what you're doing.
Even a band called the Turnips of Doom can kill it on stage.
Is it a pun? The turn ups of
No,
Doom? Oh.
no, it's no pun.
You gave it too much credit.
Just it's a dumb name.
I thought it was like the turn up, like turn up.
Oh yeah,
uses that pun in
yes,
his
you
You
posters.
can use that. You can use that.
Absolutely
The turn ups of
Absolutely right.
doom. Yeah. As
up
in
beat.
the turn it up.
Yes.
Turn it up.
Well,
Turn it up, kids.
Turn it up.
but great. Well, you guys, you are you going to be touring together as two groups?
Yes.
Yep.
For how many months?
Well, we did the West Coast in late October.
Yeah.
We went from
Yeah, I've heard
LA up to Seattle,
Mhm.
which was incredible. And tomorrow we start the East Coast. It's just sadly it's just 4 shows, and then we're scheming on a European tour next year.
Scheming quite well.
Scheming
Hopefully-
quite well.
Hopefully
It's
there will
all
be
in the
hopefully there'll be
works.
more, because I think that Soulside and Scream is like a great, fantastic pairing on a bunch of different levels.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of like the message, what the sort of ethos of the music is. There's a lot of overlap, but the music of the two bands is actually quite distinct. But not like, why are those two bands paired together?
Could you
I think-
flesh out the ethos a little bit for us, though?
Well, you know, Scream was, you know, one of the original, really sort of, I don't know if you guys fashioned yourselves as such, but, you know, one of the original anti-racist punk bands, and which was extremely important. And Soulside was, you know, on their heels, you know, it's like we're just a few years behind, but Soulside was absolutely very much an anti-racist band, and we were really, really committed to it, as was Scream. So Scream was, you know, a core influence. You know, without Scream and the Bad Brains, there probably wouldn't have been a Soulside. It's really true. And so, and at the same time, we're now 35, 40 years later, so it's not like we're the young guys anymore. But it is, you know, it's still intact, though, that we look up to Scream, and I think those guys like us and stuff. But it is, they came before us, and so it really is an honor to play with them. But I also think it's like, I think we have enough band self-confidence, or feel good enough about what we do, that I think it makes a really good pairing. Plus, you know, we play so well, and they, as I've been saying on social media, we fucking put a flame under their asses, and so these guys got to respond.
Are you
We
saying
have a
that they're
blast
trying to
doing
move
it.
up to your bar that you
We're
took
trying to
pretty
get-
high?
They're setting
we're
a
kind of like
bar.
edging past them,
Yeah.
but they get to play last.
Do you think-
so they get the last word.
Oh,
if they didn't have the
man.
last word, this might
how
be
it
a
goes.
whole
Sort
a
of
whole
like the
different
bottom of the
scenario.
ninth inning.
I
right?
know. We get the tired crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna go. Oh, let's catch an Uber.
And it is an older crowd,
gotta work
so we
in the
know that
morning.
if we
Yes.
Yeah.
As someone who's attending tomorrow, no, you guys are going to get all whipped into a frenzy. So no, we're not going
Yes.
to be tired. No way.
Yeah. Well, the message
We're excited.
that you described is still extremely relevant. I mean, it's being talked about and discussed and fight over all over the place. So it would seem to be that the reason for you to play is absolutely solid.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I also, like, I said anti-racist, but that was just one example of the ethos. You know, one of the things I love about Scream and some of Pete's lyrics is this, you know, a working class, like a reverence for working class everyday people. I love that Scream song, People is just so beautiful. And in today's political chatter, you know, even among progressives, sometimes economic issues just get sort of overlooked.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go too far political, but the wealthy versus the not wealthy is a real feeling at times, at least for me, you know. And it's always funny to me that regardless of the politician's affiliation, I'm like, well, you're still extraordinarily wealthy. Like, your life is vastly different from mine. You don't understand my problems, you know. And that's always hard for me to stomach, you know. But it is what it is. But, you know, to the working class point, you know, have you seen that? There's this movie recently. It's called The Menu. Have you heard of this?
No.
I've heard of it. I don't
All
know.
right, so it's a movie, and I will spoil it moderately for you. But there's this theme of the givers and the takers, of like you're either a worker or you're not a worker, and it was really interesting to see that sort of like played out because. In the end, and again, I'm going to spoil it for you. I'm going to spoil it for everyone right now. In the end, everyone dies. Everyone dies. And it's like this weird moment because the person says to them, like, do you want to be over here with us and the workers, the givers, or do you want to be with them, the takers? Like that it matters before everyone dies.
Right.
Right? But I was like struck at how that resonated with me, where I was like, holy shit.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, I'm a worker, and no, even if everything burns up, I don't want to be with those people. So I feel you on that. The working class thing is real. Can you talk about it?
It is real, and
talk about
he's
it.
always written stuff, and he's always tried to keep it simple, and he made it quite personal because he didn't want to necessarily beat on people's heads about what he was trying to say, and he would euphemistically turn it into an experience that he's personally had or the band's had. And that's the way he writes a lot of the stuff. I mean, he doesn't really write above anybody, for sure.
I think he's one of the greatest lyricists and performers of all time.
So great.
And he really believes it. And what he says before every song is just like, he's right there. He's that guy. He's there. He's part, it's me and you. He's them. He's us. He's representing that crowd. He's representing all of us. And he's representing the audience. And he's giving it, in spades in buckets. He's just like, every lyric is, he means it, and he's delivering it, throwing himself around, injuring himself, on the stage. When we were playing in Europe, his voice was like shredded, throwing himself into the crowd, pulling himself back out, and then he's at your feet, and he's just kind of like squirming around. And then he's leaping up again, and we're all trying to keep up with this guy. He's got so much energy and belief in everything that he's writing, saying, and doing.
And we're all just like what he writes about. I mean, we still, after wonderful trips and festivals in Europe, we come back and slog a regular job just like everybody else does.
Yeah, most of the people in the arts are hammering it out. They're riding in the vans, they're traveling to places and sitting around for hours, then playing, then sitting around for more hours and going to the next
Right.
spot. But it's all the arts too. I'm actors, painters, poets, even
Look at that
It's a
union
minstrel
strike.
life,
That was one of the things that was funny about the union strike that happened out on the West Coast is like there was this assumption that like, oh, why doesn't Seth Rogen want to fucking work? But it's like, well, it's not Seth Rogen. It's 99. It's 99% of those working actors who don't make millions of dollars per films, right?
Right.
And that what blows me away more than anything else in the world, and I don't just mean in art or the working life, is how little compassion we have for how hard fucking life is. Because most people, whoever you are, whether you're rich, poor, or whatever, your life is fairly difficult. And I know this because all our lives are relatively similar. And I'm not saying that life isn't better when someone else cleans your house, because it is, but there's just this lack of compassion for like what the experience is. And I wish I could say that it was one side versus the other, but it's not. It's a lack of compassion across the board.
I will say this, as a union member myself, Local 399 and Local 44 out in Los Angeles, there has been, aside from you get those comments from people like, oh, they don't need to work, they're wealthy fucking actors or whatnot. But you're right, it's all the people behind the scenes, it's all the background actors and the smaller rolled people. But the cool thing is that you've seen across the country this huge labor movement.
Yeah.
It's really that I haven't seen in 20 years. Even
Yeah.
when we did the last contract in 2008, it wasn't like this at all. Where you had like the UAW struck.
Yeah.
Us Teamsters, we signed our deal, but it was a good deal.
Just
but
an
all
American
across-
university was striking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All across America, there's been these strikes, and I was surprised at the support they're getting from people that, slinging burgers at McDonald's or whatever, and you can see it when you go to the get-togethers for these things and the support rallies and stuff like that. So I was a little happy with the turnaround because, they've been trying to destroy unions since day one in America, and it's what built this fucking country and taking care of thousands upon thousands of American families.
One of my favorite jokes that I used to make. So my partner Amanda, she was really involved with the American University Union, and she asked me because she loves a fight. She loves a fight. It's like her favorite thing in the world. She said, "Do you think I should get involved with this?" And I was like, "It is literally the best thing you could do for yourself." And I did a little research, and I found this one quote that really stuck out at me, and it said, "The reasons that unions exist isn't so workers have rights. It's so workers would stop killing the owners." Because what would end up happening is the owners would start doing some fucked up shit. And then the workers would get together and be like, "Yo, we're going to burn your fucking house down." And they would. And then so they were like, "Well, we got to have some kind of negotiation before this happens again."
And even with the actors, like I said, some of them are very wealthy, but it was about theft, AI and potential theft.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
what they were
very
telling us
serious,
on the table was pretty
and
nuts. Yeah.
They had every right to stand up for that.
Yeah.
Same with most unions. They're fighting for.
Well, the saddest thing
It's
is
got to
that,
be fair.
is that teachers still don't get fucking paid.
Amen.
They're fucking ducking bullets now.
Yep.
There's lots of
Given guns, which is
yeah.
ridiculous.
You could bring them up. You can bring child care workers.
There's a host of things.
There's a whole bunch of things, but there's also a yin and yang in the whole thing. If you are part of the administration, by these people making much more money, it raises inflation.
Well, the administration doesn't make that much more money. It's
No, and the administration does. No, but if child care workers, teachers, if they made more money, then it would cost everybody who has a child in school. And it's kind of like the balance is very, very touchy.
the one thing
Good
I
point.
noticed, and I may be wrong in my thought about it, is that like the whole labor thing that's been going on and how easy they've been able to get what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I started to think, why all of a sudden has it kind of gone the other way?
Good question.
And it kind of dawned on me, well, it's because the cheap labor that was exploited around the world is not being can't be as exploited as it easily was before. China, which we get so much shit from China, is probably controlling a little more of what we're getting. So I may be wrong, but I think American labor, they're like, we kind of really need to depend on this a little more because it's getting really hard to do what we used to do across the world. And that was one thought I had. Maybe I'm wrong.
I would say I can see that perspective, and I certainly think what I find somewhat interesting is in that same pathway that you're talking about, the amount of like reliance is also dependent upon now the amount of vision we have into that, right? It was an awful lot of reliance when there weren't cameras over in those countries showing us where those people lived and how they lived. Now it's a little bit different. I can find like 10 YouTube channels that will show me those cities that those people live in, and it causes you real angst. Like I'm like, holy crap, how do I get out of this? These people shouldn't have to live this way. You know?
Absolutely.
And so I think a lot of that comes from that. Yeah.
Yeah, whether they're forced to change or not, it dawned on me. Maybe I don't know, or maybe there's some decency involved in it. Like,
Sure.
you really want
Yeah, and there's a just wage for sure, or what people get. I mean,
There's nothing good in slavery.
no, but Johnny's a retailer in a sense. I mean, excuse me if I call you a retailer, but you really are an artistic retailer. But you know that you can probably get your books printed cheaper some way in some country.
Yep.
And you have to make a decision. Okay, I can do that, and I can get more money from it, or I can have them printed and they'll cost a whole lot more, and my company may go out of business because no one will buy it. And there's always this shifting thing going on.
You have to have a sense for what the people want.
It's just
They want
smaller
higher
network.
quality. Yeah, they want higher quality, and it's also a societal thing. Other countries think the U.S. may not place enough importance on early childhood education, and so we don't put the best and the brightest, and we don't give money to that. But you just have to take the temperature and navigate as best you can.
Well, folks, I hate to
We're going
Good
to
talk.
have to. We're going to have to split.
Thanks
you
for
don't need
sticking
to
out.
rehearse. You know all the
We're
songs.
going to have to split. I want to leave with one thought. Now, what do you think? I think that the world is becoming overpopulated, and but some people disagree with me. What do you think?
I agree.
I agree.
I would agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I only had one kid.
Well, because you get some people that say, no, it's not. You know, we've got plenty of land. It's just not being used. And then I say to them, yeah, I could live there, couldn't I? Who the hell am I going to give guitar lessons to?
Yeah, like so that there's no more parklands or any
Yeah.
space anymore.
So
There's
there's-
just
yeah.
people.
Just people everywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's the overpopulation thing. There's more people. So let's
In concentrated areas.
let's encourage people to reproduce more. Let's give them as much free porn as possible. So they need to have sex more. So there's more and more and more people.
Do you think porn
so
makes
we
more
can make
babies?
More.
That would be an interesting statistic.
It makes a lot of things.
It makes a mess. So, would you mind saying your names on the recording so we have them?
Yeah, no, do the IDs.
Yeah, do the ID. Please check in and introduce yourself.
My name is Gizz, and I am happy to say that I am the rhythm guitar player of Scream.
And I am Franz Stahl, and I can happily say I'm the guitar player also from Scream.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Wait.
Oh, but he's still here. He's sticking around.
Okay.
I was just getting that because they're leaving.
All right.
Sorry.
Got it.
Dig
We're not
deep,
wrapping up yet, Johnny.
Dig deep. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Special guest stars. Thank you for joining us.
Where
are you
guys staying?
And Dennis Maggie's of our friends. In Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Can we get a picture? Can we turn the lights on for a second?
No.
I love the thing you posted. So sweet. I wanted to reply. I was like, anything I thought, it just sounded so stupid for me to post.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I
I was
just wanted to tell you personally that I was
marinating it in a while because I've been
lovely. It was
I've been listening to
lovely.
the record so much. We were listening to it on the way down and love the song that you sing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It sounds great. We were all marveling at it. But it was like, yeah, there was like your record was like literally making. I'm not a crier, but tears didn't actually fall